Hello and welcome to the show. My name's Ryan and this is my co-host, Jesse.
Hi.
So, Jesse, today we're going to be talking about some very exciting topics.
Yeah, we're gonna. I know there's a name for this, but basically when, like, you know the expression "don't throw the baby out with the bathwater."
No, but I take your word for it.
I don't know what that means, but it comes from something in history. Okay.
Everything Okay, this is what we're really getting at. Everything comes from something.
Don't be so arrogant to think that things didn't happen before you were born on this earth.
This is what it means. People think today that, like, you go to Target and you're just like, oh, this towel is just here for me,
Yeah,
like
guess
it's just
what? A bloody-ridden child, with bloody fingers, sewed that towel and then they bleached it afterwards so that you wouldn't see the blood.
they bleached off that blood. The kid was bloody ridden. Okay, the blood was riding on the kid to the factory where the blood remained throughout because they can't even afford to wash the blood off. That's the truly sad thing.
Our point is this. Okay, so for example, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. In olden times, everybody would take a bath in the same tub of water, and at the end of it, this is for real, at the end of it, the water was so murky, and they would bathe the baby last. For some reason, they would be like, okay, now the infant who can die so easily of diseases needs to go into this gray, sludgy water. And the phrase, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, was like, don't forget about the child even though you can't see him.
You can't. If that kid goes down into that water, you cannot see. Like, we're talking a couple inches. You just can't see because it's so murky.
So that's what we're going to be talking about the show. Things that you use or you see every day that, hello, they mean something.
They came from
something.
somewhere. They came from somewhere, okay?
History.
Yeah, they came from history. Everything has an origin story. It's like Joseph Campbell said, the guy who invented the soup.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Stuff comes from... a hero starts somewhere, and then he goes somewhere else, and that's how things happen. And that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
Where the thing started and how it got to where it is.
Okay, so for example, Ryan and I go to this snow cone place, and it's not really a snow cone place. It's like a Vietnamese snow cone place. It's like the snow cone is like a bowl of this fluffy, snowy ice. Like it's like airy, and it's not like a normal snow cone. We love it. It's called Snow Monster. They have free Wi-Fi. It's very chilly in there. They do a special thing with the ice and the fruit and the syrups, and we like it.
Guys, if you can convince your kids and your spouse to go, just go to Snow Monster.
Yeah.
Okay? No matter where you live.
It's freaking summer. Just do it.
Okay, but this is what we're going to talk about first.
Delightful in winter. So this is what we're going to talk about. Not a lot of people know this, Ryan, but snow cones actually, for normal everyday Americans in their Subarus or whatever, in their hats, they go and they get a snow cone, and it's like a novelty item. It's like it's a fun little treat. Well, guess what? That fun little treat that you're about to chomp your greedy little mouth in, swallow down your gullet.
You're about to sink your dirty little greedy teeth into.
It comes from something very tragic.
That's right.
When back in the olden times, and that's
okay. See, we're going back against the old. We want you to remember that the olden times.
Yeah, history, mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so back in the olden times, poor people.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we? When we say olden times, we're talking about around the time of the Sphinx, right? So
I mean, I guess I don't know a whole lot about that, but
okay. Well, I will say when I was at Columbia University, which is what I call.
Did you go there?
It's what I call Wikipedia. I read that around olden times typically refers to the Sphinx time.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, in olden times, people were so poor. People people aren't poor like this anymore. Keep in mind, people don't starve anymore.
Like, okay, for us in the U.S. Western Hemisphere, poor is like, I have 2 Xboxes and I have a flat screen TV in my bathroom.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
That's not, you know?
Yeah.
Come on.
So, and you know what? All over the world, poor is just not what it used to be. Poor used to be something tragic. It used to be something gritty. Okay, so these poor people in the olden times, they had nothing to eat. They didn't have a pot to piss in. They would take a rolled up old dirty newspaper, right, and make it into a cone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they would barefoot waddle into the snow, so hungry that they would go and scoop up the snow, the dirty, yucky snow, and eat it.
And this is actually really kind of inspiring in a way, because these people were eating filth snow.
Filth snow.
Okay, this...
And they loved it. They loved it.
You know what? And
they didn't love it, but they appreciate it.
They hated it.
They appreciated it.
They hated it, but they appreciated it. And they said to themselves, you know what? We are eating filthy snow that a horse stepped on with its hoof, okay?
Right.
But we're still going to have the respect to put it into a cone.
Yeah.
Even if that cone came from a newspaper.
But it's all we have.
It's all we have, and the ink from the newspaper is leaking into the snow.
And it makes it taste all metallic and gross. But
yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Do you know the taste when you lick your you get a cut or something and you're like, oh, I'll lick it, and it's like a weird irony. That's what they're.
You do that a lot.
I do that. I kind of like on purpose do that.
Yeah, you get a weird pleasure out of it.
I get a weird pleasure out of that, but that's what their snow cones are tasting like. Bloody
if you
fingers.
can imagine. Now, what happens in cases like this are rich people, okay, upper class people, reappropriate the things that poor people are doing, like it's what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's cute. Like, oh, that's cute what they're doing, that newspaper in that snow. Like, they seem to be really enjoying that. Hey, guess why they're enjoying that? Because they haven't eaten in 4 days.
Yeah.
And they can't feel any of their limbs, and they're dying of gangrene.
And these people...
And sphinxes.
These elites were so... It was so disproportionate, the wealth, okay? That they're like, we're tired of eating, lion meat off of
and rubies.
This is the sick thing about these times.
Rubies
The olden times when the Sphinx was being built, people would be eating lion meat off of a lion. Okay?
Right.
They would pay
no respect.
No respect. They would pay people to train the lion to be still while they would eat another lion like off top. You know, like the naked sushi thing? Yeah.
It was like that. It was just like that.
It was like that.
So what they did is they would take clean snow and they would pour something like really decadent, like maple syrup on it or something of that nature. And they took clean paper to make the cone. And what else happened, Ryan? Because I feel like then the poor people saw that and they were like, whoa, that's a snow cone.
They were like...
We wish we had that.
Yeah, they would say, you know what?
It was all they had and the rich people took it, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. And then the thing is, like, the poor people started saying, you know what? Snow cone is ours. We're going to take it back. And guess what the rich people did?
What?
Oppressed them.
Yeah.
They oppressed them.
Indentured servitude.
Yeah, they were like, any...
Oh, you want this snow cone? You have to pay 10 galleons for it.
Yeah, exactly. And
they were like, we don't have that, we don't have that, we don't have that.
So then it became this snow cone blacklisting thing where they were trying to scrub out any dissenters who were standing up against the snow cone adoption from the rich people. So what would happen is they called this pee-holing. And what they would do is if they found somebody talking about how the poor people invented the snow cone, they would go out to the woods and dig a hole and pee in it and push the poor people into it.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah.
And I almost couldn't even believe my ears because these days, modern times, You cannot even conceive of that kind of torture.
Yeah.
Like, torture to me is, you know, when
torture to you, I feel like
when
is,
my pillows just don't fall right underneath my back.
or you're like watching a Chopped episode that you've seen before, and you're like, this is torture. I already know
Yeah.
who's gonna win.
You can hear my dog barking.
Yeah.
There are other things that have a past. Other names like
So that's the snow cone
that's
story.
the snow cone story.
So I hope that that's inspiring. If you're standing up for something, remember and not a real happy ending to that one. We didn't bring it back around like, oh, they won in the end and they got back their snow cone identity. They pushed
It was
them all.
lost forever.
They pushed them all in those holes in the woods.
It'd be nice if we just left the poor people some sort of legacy, but unfortunately,
Nope,
them's the breaks.
you don't get anything.
What's another thing?
So the next thing we want to talk about, we've covered snow cones. The next thing we're going to talk about is something that's very important to a lot of people,
Mhm.
especially in the country that we're recording this in, Ireland, which is Christianity. So we're going to talk about.
Explain what Christianity is.
So
Real quick.
so
We
this
can't just assume that all of our millions of listeners are Christians.
I'm going to assume that what percent? Probably like 45% of people are not going to know what we're talking about.
Okay.
So we'll explain that.
Quickly, explain it quickly.
We'll explain quickly what this is. This is like the Cliff's Notes version of it.
Yeah.
Basically, there was this guy who was wandering around in the desert, right?
Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
The son of God the Almighty.
I feel like that always bothered me. That his name was Jesus Christ. You know, like
yeah.
like
Because I don't know anybody with the last name Christ.
I know he's like the one guy.
So that doesn't make sense.
So, guys, stuff's already not adding up on this thing. Not to like burst the bubble on what you believe, but
Yeah, I don't have anything against it.
no. We're not judging. We're just telling the story.
I'm not like one of those Tinder people who says no Christians.
Those people,
Tits or get the out. No.
or they're like 420 friendly,
Ugh. Always with this.
But so, what's going on here is there was this guy, Jesus Christ, and he's walking around.
Well, he has a weird birth story, but let's skip over that because it doesn't really matter.
We'll skip over all that part. Basically, this guy was just very
Fringy.
He was like
He was fringy.
He was fringy. He was like outside. He had like long hair.
Yeah.
I think he wore a jean jacket.
He was hot too. That's what nobody ever says. Like I see pictures of him sometimes. I'm like, oh,
Get him on Tinder.
yeah, get that guy on Tinder. But here's the thing, virgin.
He's a virgin. That's right.
Even though, so this is why he's fringy. He would hang out with prostitutes and thieves and the poor unwashed masses.
And
those were his peeps.
I think if he was on Tinder, he'd be 420 friendly because he invented that stuff.
You are throwing out some inflammatory statements that are okay. All right.
That are
You said it.
also true. So this guy, this is another story I heard about him that hasn't been confirmed. He went into a bank and he pushed over all the tables in the bank.
And why did he do that? Because they were selling pictures of him.
They were selling pictures of him unauthorized.
Yeah, it was copyright.
Yeah, it was
Copyright infringement.
And there's a lot of buzz right now about, should artists get paid should they be able to sue and like.
Let's break it down for the people listening.
Yeah.
These people selling the pictures of him were Spotify.
They were the Spotify of their time.
And he is Taylor Swift going, no.
No. And this is another thing that I feel like is left out of that whole story is that these were like bad pictures. Like it was like him getting into his car, but they were like he was turned at this weird angle where his chin was all
and
weird.
they would like draw an arrow like double chin.
Yeah, double
they did
chin.
commentary stuff that wasn't nice.
Yeah, and they would draw like a wiener like near him. It's like
it was in poor taste, and not only was it unauthorized, but it was foul.
Yeah, and basically this is the story that I heard. He goes into the bank, and another thing, you guys, why are they selling pictures of Jesus in a bank? They just like assume.
Well, that people are taking out money, people are putting in money. It kind of makes sense. But anyways,
they get them where
he pushes over the tables.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's cut this down really quickly.
Well, okay, one more thing. This is the kind of guy he was. He kicks over the table. The pictures are on the floor now, and he goes and he points at one of the people who was selling them. And he goes, "Pick them up." Yeah. He was like kind of a, like he has a reputation as a nice guy,
but he was very
stern. He was stern. Like he could switch like really quick,
especially if you disappoint him. He's one of those people that goes, "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed."
Yeah, and he's also like if he's hungry, he gets angry. He's like one of those type of people.
And he calls it hangry.
And
I'm getting the hangries.
Yeah.
So
have you ever been hangry, but you're not? It's not that you're so hungry you're angry. You're just hungry and angry.
Yeah.
You just happen
to
be.
And it just happens to be at the same time. There's no connection.
Right. So anyway, he does this thing at the bank, and the next thing he knows, he's got to go to court. Okay.
Okay.
So
I don't remember this part.
Yeah, he's got to go to court. And the thing about court back then is that unlike court today, where you go and you're like, you have a lawyer and stuff, back then they'd just be like, we don't like this guy's long hair.
Yeah.
Let's murder him.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And they just used the kicking over the picture table stuff.
But you know what he did?
What?
He was like, "Oh, I'm all for it. I'm going to die for all the center." I think this is how it goes. I'm going to die for all the sinners.
Yeah.
And the way he died, very gruesome, very painful. Nailed him to a cross. That's where the cross comes from, okay, if you're following.
Yeah.
Nail him to the cross, put a freaking crown on his head made of thorns.
Mm-hmm.
Nail his feet in his hands.
Yep.
Leave him up there, jeering at him.
Yeah. And I saw this in a movie, I think. Either that or I just made it up. But imagination is also a form of reality, which we're going to talk about in later episodes. But I think he's on that cross with the crown. I think a bird flew by and pecked him in the head.
Right.
So, that's that.
Yeah, if that happened in the movie, then it probably happened in real life.
Yeah. You can't just throw something in a movie,
No, there's rules.
That's not going to
You can get in trouble.
That's why they have like script supervisors and ADs and boopervisors. And craft service is because you can't just toss, we're going to have a bird peck him in the head because we could do that, because we could CGI it.
There was definitely somebody there who was like, yeah, I was there, that happened.
Right. Or it was like somebody's grandpa, and then they passed the story on, which is legit, too.
Yeah. Word of mouth is very, very powerful.
It's very powerful.
Okay, so Christianity, so he dies. People love him after he dies. It's one of those Golden Girls type of things.
Mm-hmm.
Love him, follow him. It becomes a religion. Christianity. Christmas. Mass.
You missed it. Christmas. You missed him, but now you get another chance to celebrate him. Are you guys following this? Snow cones. If you don't, do you see how everything's? This is going to be a big part of this podcast. Everything's connected.
So, what Christianity is the word.
Right. So, here's the thing. He's a clever dude, okay? Because he had that incident in the bank, okay? Which, started the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And this is, okay.
What was weird is that, whenever anybody asked him about it, hey, what happened? He's like, the incident.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He kind of had a way of distancing himself, disassociating himself from his own actions. It was a little sociopathic.
Yeah, and
Like, oh yeah, the incident, right? It was no big deal. Well, you pushed over some tables and you pointed at people and you yelled at them.
And there's another thing. I think that he had like a little group of friends who he would hang out with.
Prostitutes.
Yeah, and after some of them were prostitutes, but he would call them disciples, which they were like,
No.
can we just be friends? And he's like, no, you're kind of like my minions. And they're like, is he
Right.
is he joking around? So there was a guy named Luke, and what he said, this is telling about his personality. He actually told, Luke was like, what happened with the bank thing? Just tell me. Like, we'll sit down, I'll write it down so we can clear it up, whether you did something bad or not. And Jesus Christ, he was like, nothing happened in the bank. And Luke is like at least 15 people have saw the bank thing where you kicked over you got furious and kicked over the picture table.
And he was like, that doesn't sound like me.
He's like, a lot of people have long hair these days, it wasn't me. And he said he was busy that day. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that if you go to the Bible and you read that part of the scriptures,
Yeah.
it's basically an argument between Jesus and this guy of just
Right.
what really happened
Right.
and him denying. And then the last page, he's just like, okay, Jesus, he says his own name, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I kicked over the table. Can we move on? Like, I make mistakes.
And then the next day,
yeah.
on the cross.
On the cross.
So it just teaches you, own up to your actions.
Own up to your actions.
Be an adult.
But be careful, because you might get on the cross. Yeah. So it's a mix. It's a very subtle message of learning to deal with these things. So what happened after is a lot of people were inspired by this, because this guy is up on the cross. He lost a lot of weight, and he's like, oh, this guy's real sexy, but then the bird pecked him in the head, and a lot of people didn't like that. But
it's kind of like an extreme weight loss type of thing. Like, you have those shows now, like Biggest Loser. It was like one of those. It was really inspiring to see this guy who really took charge of his health. And
yeah, exactly. And he's willing to go to kind of like these lengths of being out in the sun for a long time and getting sand in his mouth, which this is another thing I want to talk about. During these times, and we talked about the Sphinx times, sand everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it's just like, oh, like, you gotta...
You don't see sand so much anymore.
Yeah.
It migrated to the beaches.
Well, that's after the Industrial Revolution. They were like, during the Industrial Revolution, they were like, enough with the sand.
We can't build anything
Enough.
on this.
Yeah, this, like, we built a store, and it's all lopsided, because this crap is shifting all around.
Yeah, definitely happened because of the Industrial Revolution. Got rid of the sand.
And we walk out, unless we have a scarf over our face, which we have no idea who our friends, what anybody looks like because of these scarves. We're getting sand all in our in the middle of our teeth, in the in-between part of our teeth. You know?
It sounds like a nightmare.
It's gritty, you know? Anyway.
Christianity, the word.
Christianity, the origin of the word.
Did we just discuss it, or is there a different origin?
Well, okay, this is another thing. You have to admire this guy, all right? I mean, the story that we told about him denying, like him kicking, everyone knew he kicked over the picture table. Denies it, and then finally, like, just exhausts himself enough to be like, yeah, I kicked over the table. Then this guy goes and names the religion after himself.
Which is... It's a little tacky.
It's a little tacky, but it's a real example of you have to market yourself.
Yeah, I guess he was like the innovator of branding.
Yeah, he was one of the first guys. He's like, I'm just going to get my name out there,
Right.
A bird pecked me in the head. I got to get something good out of this.
Right.
So, and then he sold like at least 1,000 copies of his book. which, by the way, he didn't even write.
Right, he got other. Well, that was. I mean, that's smart. Farm it out, to your disciples and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he was a real innovator in outsourcing, in weight loss, branding, sand, fashion. I mean, if you,
I mean, I still see people today, on Tinder dressing like him. He refused to wear a shirt a lot of the time. Like Fine by me.
Like the guy from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
Who later came and he was like, well, I'm going to just adopt that. So, guys, check his book out. If you go to Amazon.com and put in our coupon code for our podcast, you can get like 20% off.
Yeah.
On that one.
The bill.
Yeah. So we got another topic we want to talk about.
One more word. That word is, well, you probably are familiar with it. Most of you probably have it if you live inside of a home and you're really lucky. It's called the window blind.
Okay, so we've covered snow cones, Christianity, the religion, and now we're moving on to another very important part of modern life, which is the window blind.
Window blind. Very innocuous product. Nobody really thinks about the window blind. They're grateful for it because it blocks out the sun and peeping toms. But where does it come from? Where does the name window blind come from?
And part of why we wanted to talk about this is because, like we were talking earlier about the towels at Target, where people just think like, oh, this just appeared here.
Grow up.
You need to grow up and quit thinking that towels just come out of nowhere. Okay? Is that the window blind something you walk by every day? Okay?
Right.
And you're just like, I don't give a shit about that. I don't care. Like, I'm too busy with my Twitter. I'm too busy with my Twitter. I'm too busy with my LinkedIn and my OkCupid. Well, guess what? It's fucking important. Okay?
Yeah.
So get your head out of your butt.
Thanks for saying all that, Ryan.
Okay.
Because it's not like
you're welcome.
People are just not grateful for the things around them anymore in a very on a cellular level. Now, something like the apple, everybody's like, oh, I love apples. I love them. Well, guess what? The apple grew on a tree. Towels didn't grow on trees. Window blinds didn't grow on trees. Snow cones didn't grow on trees.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
That apple just fell into a basket and appeared in the supermarket. Nothing happened.
Yeah. No, this is the definition of entitlement society. Okay?
This is the world that we live in.
Okay? People, what they do is they say, yeah. And it's like, you know what? You can't just say that. So, what we want to go into is we're going to go back. We're going to rewind. We're going to go to the Industrial Revolution. Where we're coming.
It's connected.
We're coming back. Are we going all the way back to the Sphinx stuff?
No.
Hell no. Hell no.
Because they didn't have window blinds back then.
You guys, they
draped things, but anyways, here's the point. Window blinds. Back during the Industrial Revolution, there were soot. Soot was very prolific.
It was
everywhere.
all the rage, like getting sooty. Yeah, like a kid with a Newsies like hat.
Extra.
Yep, he was giving out those newspapers.
Yeah.
Real sooty.
But you couldn't even see that kid. You were like, is that a child or a street urchin?
Is that a shadow?
Some sort of goblin creature.
Yeah.
You didn't know. So the soot often got in people's eyes. Nobody thinks about this. It got in people's eyes, and these horrible wretches would go blind. Blind is when you can't see, by the way. So it's pretty serious.
We're giving that's a little foreshadow right there.
Okay. Well, back during the Industrial Revolution, people did not understand how science worked. Yes, they were building things that made soot, but they didn't understand how science worked. And so they still believed in myths and legends and folklore. And they thought that people who couldn't see were, how do I say this?
They thought they were basically like
agents of the devil.
Yeah. They thought they were involved in the dark arts.
Yeah. I'm laughing because it's so preposterous.
Yeah. Now, okay, so let's just set the stage again. This is the Industrial Revolution. We want to remind you that the soot industry is huge. Huge. They're manufacturing soot as fast as they can, getting it out there into the marketplace, and people are just buying it up, putting it on themselves.
By the way, when the soot gets into the snow, you can't make a friggin' snow cone.
Yeah.
So
another slight to the poor people.
I mean, you can make a snow cone, and poor people certainly did because they're grateful.
Yeah.
And they do it because they're hungry and they need to hydrate. But it wasn't pleasant. Okay.
It wasn't, yeah. You got soot all over your cone.
So these blind people, once again, the rich people were like, ew, oh, blind people, oh, when they look at you, you're going to die in 4 days, or when they look at you, you're going to throw up all your food. They're like Medusa. They'll turn you to stone, is what they said. And they put up flyers.
They put up flyers, and they put up the kind of flyers.
Knowing that the blind people couldn't see the flyer.
It said the flyers would say, poor blind people are like Medusa. If you want more information, rip off one of the tabs. And it was cut on the bottom with a bunch of their phone. And people would rip it off and call, and they'd be like, these people are gross. Don't look at them. Don't even look at them.
And they were like, well, it's really hard because they're everywhere because of all this freaking soot. And they go, okay, well, we have to solve this problem. These people are clogging the streets. This blind
They're choking the streets.
Choking up the streets.
They're just like, the streets are just like trying to cough them out, but they're wedged into the streets. They're just like clogging, like they're like hair, like a bunch of hair and matted soot and dirt in the streets.
So what they did was they took them to the ghetto, where there were all these ramshackle houses with no potties, and they put them in the houses, locked the door. Oh, but first, guess what they did? Can you guess?
Take a wild stab at this one.
They put freaking window blinds on the windows and then like super glued them so that the blind people couldn't get them off if they wanted the sun on their poor little faces. So that's where window blinds come from.
So if you're living right now in a house with window blinds, you're basically...
Shame on you.
Yeah, shame on you. Where we live, we took them all... Once we read this, we took them all down, okay? Because we're not part of that whole system. We're not part of the blind industrial complex. You guys.
Yeah. It's an oppressive system that still exists today. Even though the soot industry is kind of faded into the background. We don't really use soot so much anymore, except for on our eyelids because it looks good.
It looks good. When a girl... Have you seen, like...
Katy Perry?
Katy Perry.
She uses a lot of soot on her
She's
eyes.
got those sooty eyes, but it's like gold. It's harder to get now because the supply is so low. It costs more. So soot is like $1,000 an eye now.
Yeah.
And only like dancers like Katy Perry can afford it.
Yeah, she's a dancer.
She's a dancer. But when a woman has those sooty eyes, I'm just like, wow. There's something about that she looks like she just crawled out of like a soot hole or whatever, and it's very cute.
Fancy women.
Yeah.
Is what I call them.
Yeah.
Fancy women.
Fancy women.
With those sooty eyes.
Do you think you'll ever become a fancy woman?
I don't know if I can now that I know everything that I know about soot. But maybe we can find an alternative.
Yeah.
With a less sad, pitiful past.
Yeah. I mean, and we have to be honest about where this soot's coming from and what they do. And, this is upsetting to a lot of people. And I hate to tell you this if you're involved in buying soot, but just so you know where it's coming from, what they do is they make cats go down into a mine. very deep, where there's like lava, and then the soot gets on the cats, and they get it off the cats. You guys, they're getting it off the cat's fur, and they're putting it on their eyes.
And then they send the cats back down
Yeah,
into the lava mine thingy.
yeah, they go basically in a circle. So
And they're just like, well, yeah, just. And one time, a guy like he had just started working there, and he was shocked. And he goes, "Well, how many times do I send the cat down? This cat looks like it's getting pretty sick." And you know what the foreman said? Until it's dead. Thanks for joining us.
Think
for
about
the
that.
podcast.
Thanks for joining us. We're sorry. We're really sorry to end on that note, but you know, you need
It's
to know.
yeah, you need to know. I'm not gonna.
know.
I'm not gonna. Sugarcoat this stuff. We're not gonna sugarcoat this stuff because this is history. This is all of everything we said tonight is factual.
Yeah. And the next time you see a cat in your neighborhood, just think that little guy could have been, 200 years ago. He could have been, he had they put a little harness.
Little soot gremlin.
He could have been a little soot worker. They put a little harness on him, tie it to a rope. They go down a line, filing down there, one after another, getting soot on their fur, so that dancers, okay, like Catherine Perry, and who else?
Christian.
There we go. All connected, you guys.
Right.
Okay, so think about that.
And I think she even loves cats.
Man,
I guess we need to get a hold of her somehow.
So on the next show, we're going to be talking about 3 different subjects.
If you have a word that you're curious about or a phrase that you're curious about, send it our way because this is our passion.
We don't have an email set up yet, okay? So let's do this. Just write it down.
Yeah, somewhere.
Write it down, and then when we get an email,
put it on my Facebook page.
Put it on our Facebook page. Well, you guys have a good afternoon, and we will see you on the next podcast.